Welcome to the Unacceptàbles podcast, episode 2, covering Twitter Files part 2, 3, and 4 with Scott Campbell and Jay Shaw.
We want to talk today about the Twitter Files, the world famous Twitter Files. And
the Twitter Files are in store for you this episode for sure. Let me just rewind a little bit. I am Scott, and this is Jay, and we are your hosts here at the Unacceptàbles. This is our first stream, our first cast of 2023. So welcome to 2023.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. The year of the rabbit. Coincidentally, you're hearing us from Rabbit Hole Radio or the Rabbit Hole Guild. So apparently this is our year, Jay.
It is our year. That's right.
So I'm told. We're going to start things a little bit more spicy than we did with our kickoff episode last week, which was all about gold and investing in gold. This week, we're going to talk about censorship, about a bunch of different things, but specifically the Twitter Files. And if you don't know what the Twitter Files are, you should first of all go and Google that. Go and Google Twitter Files and just take a quick dive in there and see what's going on. But I can tell you it's not a conspiracy theory. And I can also tell you that the FBI would have had a meeting to decide to label you all conspiracy theorists and label this as a conspiracy theory because they're complicit.
They found hundreds of accounts that was the case. The ones that were actually so essentially what they did was Elon Musk, and this is just to diverge a little bit. Whenever I look at something like this, okay, so we got Weiss Twitter, $44 billion. A little while goes by, all of a sudden this Twitter dump happens, and you start to go, okay, what's the MO there? I'm not going to assume that anybody is altruistic by nature. I'm to assume that there is absolutely no such thing, and I think that that's practical and adulty. But so I go, well, what's his angle here?
Wait, did you just say adulty?
Adulty, yeah, adulty. Adultish,
okay, like
adultness.
Carry on. I'm just clarifying. Carry on.
So like in this case, you go, okay, so he buys this, and immediately the price of Twitter sinks like a stone because of all the very wealthy, rich people who happen to be extremely left-wing motivated just sold their shares. Just makes the price fall, right? It has nothing to do with the value of Twitter. It's just a bunch of gomers who were taking their part to go, you can't let Donald Trump speak. And so anyway,
a bunch of libtard with libtears.
But that being said, what would be the easy way for Elon to make a bunch of money to justify this, to pull Twitter up a little bit? The easiest thing was if he went to Fox or he went to some outlet and he said, look, I'm going to dump these Twitter files. Give me $30 million and you have exclusive rights. He did not do that. He chose independent journalists, Barry Weiss. Today we're talking about Barry Weiss, Matt Taibbi,
Jay,
Michael Shellenburger.
That's a really good point right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've often looked at Elon and thought he reminds me of Dr. Evil. He should have a cat, a hairless cat perhaps in his lap. He's stroking and he's got this evil, sort of plot, this mastermind plot to overthrow the government and governments of the world, and that's kind of how I picture him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong.
He could be if he wanted to be. He could totally.
He could be, but I mean, geez, the guy bought Twitter at a loss, and then dumped a bunch of information out that he could have made money from, and I never even looked at it that way. So, wow, that's insane.
There's an element of like that was a good guy move, which again, that could be a legacy decision. That could be him saying, well, it's more valuable that people think of me not as a douche than that extra $30 million being that I have 300 billion, in any case, what happened was independent journalists got a little bit of a boost out of this. And that is always a plus, especially in the case of Barry Weiss, because what Barry Weiss does in this conversation, Barry Weiss was in charge of the second data drop. And if you're not aware of who Barry Weiss is, first of all, the one thing that makes this all a little more bulletproof than it otherwise would be is that Barry Weiss is a Jewish lesbian. So the one blanket that can't be thrown over it is misogynist, anti-Semite, homophobe. All of those things are gone because there's no possible way for Bari Weiss to be those things.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where they were going.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And they would have. They would have.
Yep.
So it was 100%. No mistake. It was no mistake to lead with Bari Weiss. So Bari Weiss worked for the New York Times as the editor of the opinion section for a decade. So as far as journalism goes, if you're an editor at the New York Times, you are one of the most powerful journalists on the planet Earth, and also used to be one of the highest respected. They dropped her. Well, no, sorry. They started to really make her life difficult in 2021 to the point that she eventually did walk, started her own Substack, and that's what she does, a Substack. Free. No charge for it. You go there, you read everything that Bari Weiss does. It costs you absolutely nothing. She's written a couple of really good books, one about how to deal with anti-Semitism, which if you are Jewish or you're a Jewish sympathizer like myself, then that's an interesting read. It goes through a lot of the history of Israel that people don't know. Anyway, Bari Weiss covered this section, which was related to the general censorship, the blacklisting or shadow banning, etc., of entities. Now, there wasn't time to go through the millions of people that were shadow banned or censored. They just picked the important names where people would care. The Dan Gambinos, the prominent right-wing figures, the Donald Trumps, etc., where they were doing a number of things. One of which was blocking. In Dan Gambino's case, they were completely blocking him from search. So if you went on search on Twitter search and you typed in Dan Gambino, who has millions and millions and millions and millions of followers, you would not get a result. That's one of the things they did. Another was to make sure that you never got traction. So only your followers and very few of them would ever see anything that you put on Twitter. And they were doing this. But just because the Twitter file dump only showed a few selected accounts does not mean it wasn't millions and millions of people. Bari Weiss is one person. She had a week. This is what she was able to do in that week. Right? So that's what I get out of that. What do you think, Scott?
Well, my first thought is very simply, why would anyone find it necessary to censor information? When did we become a society who is unable to discern between what is valid and not valid information, what we should believe and not believe? When did we need governments and different media outlets to decide for us what to think, what to feel, what to say, who to believe?
Yeah, and when did we start to hate having debate?
Exactly, and what happened to, you talk about debate. Well, what is science? Science is debate. Without debate, we do not have science because it's not a healthy science. It's not a constructive form of the scientific theory or anything if you don't have some sort of a debate. Somebody saying, well, I can prove something works differently. Without that, we wouldn't advance things. And so why are we to the point now in society where we need the government or an NGO or somebody to decide for us how to think and what is wrong think and what is right think and how to feel and who to sympathize with and who not to sympathize with and why? Why are we to this point? I don't think we are. I honestly don't think we are. I just think it's, well, for one, it's frustrating because I think people are being led to believe they're sheep and they can't make up their own minds and they can't have their own think or their own thoughts or their own opinion. I think they're just, well, I better go with this because it's the thing they say to do or else I'll be offending somebody. And I say, fuck that. Like, have your own thought. Be your own person. It's ridiculous at this point.
Well,
that's
the other thing
that's my thought.
The other thing that we might be overlooking with this Twitter files too, the most seditious part of it is that the other thing they're doing is sending a message, a very passive aggressive message that is, if you are going to question this list of things, this is what is going to happen to you. Do you see what's happening to them? That will happen to you if you do what they do. Right. And they're not coming out and saying that. It's just this kind of passive aggressive, which is a trademark of people on that side of center. They're passive aggressive. They don't typically have the fortitude to come at you, or, you know, they're derisive. They're passive aggressive, and there's flaws on both sides, but on their side, that's what it is. It's flaky and wishy-washy, and non-committal, and what they perceive to be non-confrontational. Although a lot of people, when you are passive aggressive, you'll get more confrontation than you would if you just called them an asshole. You could come up to me and call me an asshole, and I will be less offended than if you say something derisive like, oh, it's too bad that the school system aren't teaching people enough these days to know what epidemiology is. And it's like, that will get you a punch in the face right away.
Yeah, you know, I'm with you on that
it's
one.
Cowardly.
Like, just fucking say how you feel or shut the fuck up and move along either way.
Fucking chicken shit coward.
Don't waste my time with your nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what's killing the debate, is the fact that what people are doing is and they're not debating. They think it's debate. They're like, oh, this is science. This is, if you want science, this is what it is. We criticize. No, science is debate, which is, you don't say you need to go back to high school because you don't know anything. You actually come up with a piece of counter fact. You say, oh, you're citing that study. Well, I'm going to find this study that is the reason that I can disagree with that. You don't just say insulting, derisive, passive aggressive bullshit. That's not debate. That's childish and cowardly.
You know, in its essence, that's a form of control. It's a form of controlling a narrative, controlling thoughts, controlling opinions. Because if you have somebody has
shout out to the viewer. Sorry, Scott.
To the one viewer. No, two.
Two. Oh, right on.
Yeah. Woohoo. But really, you have to look at it like this. Okay, so that's a form of control. If I can make anything that you might say that might be contrary to what I'm saying or what my opinion is, something that could be vilified and something that could shame you or that you should be ashamed of, then I've controlled your narrative. I've controlled your conversation before you can even speak. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot nowadays, where it's like, oh, you're a misogynist or you're a racist for tying your shoes that way. And it's like, well, what if I want to tie my shoes? This is how I've always tied my shoes. I know you tie your shoes with the loop going this way, but I want to tie my shoes. No, that's racist.
Yeah,
It's like, well, so what? We can't have two different ways to tie our shoes without it being labeled as racist, misogynist, or homophobic, or any other of the ists or isms. Which, I mean, fuck, there's so many at this point.
Well, and that's exactly what happened with the third Twitter files. Right. So wait. First of all, Bari Weiss. There was a bit of a delay before Bari Weiss. There was the initial drop, and then Bari Weiss. The reason that there was that delay was because there's somebody at Twitter named James Baker, and he was kind of picking through he was Twitter's general counsel or lawyer, and he was sort of picking through this process.
What was that name again?
James Baker.
James
Baker.
Okay.
Yeah, and so. And then what Elon realized was that James Baker had formerly been the general counsel for the FBI and had been the general counsel for the FBI while the censorship was happening. And so there he was combing through.
And nobody saw conflict of interest here at all?
Well, Elon did, and he immediately fired him. Like on the spot.
I fucking hope so.
Basically called him in his office.
Why did it take Elon to notice that conflict of interest, I guess, is a better question.
Exactly. Because there were still losers at Twitter who were still, trying to keep everything under wraps. I mean, at this point, 37% of the people who worked at Twitter 6 months ago are no longer working at Twitter. So that's a pretty serious call for a company that size.
That is, yeah, it's a lot of people.
Something in the neighborhood of 10,000 employees, right? So it's a lot of it. There's a lot of people who got the axe. So there was this delay, and then Bari Weiss, they figured that out. They fixed that. Bari Weiss got to go through, found a few things that he was kind of trying to shuffle. We're not gonna mention that or whatnot. And then we came to the third one was Matt Taibbi, and like instant, they went after him. They combed through the entire history of Matt Taibbi's life. to find 5 instances where he may have supported someone who at some point
and then taken it out of context and blown it up and sensationalized it to make it seem so horrible when it had nothing. It's fucking ridiculous. What they'll go to the ends of it. It's like a witch hunt.
Yeah, and especially because it was secondhand news. It wasn't even, they didn't even find anything that Matt Taibbi said.
Nope.
It's just that he supported certain people
that did certain
may have at some
certain
point
things.
said something that could be construed potentially as misogyny.
Exactly.
Maybe.
It's the ultimate reach. It may be. It's the ultimate reach, really, and all of it is. It's been that way constantly. As soon as they start to label you a misogynist, a racist, a homophobic, or whatever, and you're not actually that thing. Okay, that's my caveat here. If you're actually that thing, then you don't count here, and I don't agree with that. But as soon as they start to label you that, absolutely, 100%. I don't support any of that. But if the immediate response is to go to that and call you one of these is or isms or whatever and to vilify you, then you know that their argument holds no fucking water. They've got nothing, so they got to go immediately to that because that is the current liberal talking point. Label them as something so horrible that they could never face society being labeled that thing, and they'll bury their heads in shame just to avoid that possible label and not have this conversation. That is fucking absurd to me.
Yeah, it's the same foundational basis of the witch hunt.
It is.
100%. You say the word, and it's the same foundational problem. And there's a lot of this actually. This really started to pop up in our society. The Me Too movement has given a lot of people a really great voice. The sort of dismissal of due process has made it so that if you're a guy and you get accused of R word, it doesn't matter if you're found guilty. If it was in a newspaper, you now have to move. Because you're fucked.
Your life's over. Your life's over.
And there's a number of things like that in our society. It's not just that. It's there's all these things where you're forever. Here's a good example. Steven Pinker is the head of the language department at Harvard, right? So basically, the American authority on English is Harvard, and Steven Pinker happens to run that for like the last 3 decades. He was removed from the American Society of Literature for misogynist views, again, like the case of Matt Taibbi, because he had consorted with certain people who may have said misogynistic things at some point in some place.
Steven Pinker. Again, Steven Pinker, and again, it's the ultimate reach. I mean, it's you got nothing on somebody, so you're going to try and reach for something they said 4 years ago that somebody else retweeted, and all of a sudden that became a homophobic slur. Like it's I mean, come on. If you're too simple to see through this reaching, if you're too simple to understand that this is exactly what they want to do, is they want to bury the information, so they'll make it, some sort of tragedy, some sort of thing where he said this thing 4 years ago, and then it was retweeted, and they made it homophobic, so he's a homophobe. And there's no actual, logic to it. There's no actual sense to it. They're just reaching, and they're trying to vilify, and they're trying to do whatever they can to take away from your opinion and to make it so that when you do speak, you're looked at, oh, he's a homophobe, or he's a racist, or he's a misogynist, or he's a disbeliever of science with unacceptable views. We know what that's about.
Yeah, exactly. That's, and it's, and what Matt Taibbi was in charge of was all of the various internal, like this wasn't so much the engineering portion of Twitter where they created this algorithm that would just destroy right wing or traditional views, but this was people at Twitter talking about how to disrupt Donald Trump and how to find a way to suspend him and how to justify it and how to essentially just prevent him from having that connection with his supporters. And in that, I mean, that's not even to say anything about the election, which is a different episode. Those are a different set of Twitter files that we're going to cover at some other point, the actual election fraudulent behavior. But this is just getting the American president off of Twitter and what the lengths that Twitter went to behind the scenes to do that.
I hope this is sinking in for some of you people out there. I hope
Yeah.
that you're understanding what we're saying. I hope that you're seeing the relevance of this, because basically what has gone on here is that the American government, in this case, and I'm quite sure it's going on here in Canada as well, but we're using this as an example for now. The American government colluded with a big tech company to censor information to make you make a decision at the polling stations that may or may not have been in the interest of the country, but in their best interest.
Well, and also related, additionally related to people's decision about what they're going to put in their body, what medical procedures they're going to have, and
Sure,
I think
yeah.
this video will do better if we don't say C word, but
Yeah.
that's also part of it, is to restrict.
Well, and so I think we lost you there, Jay. Are you back? I think we lost you,
Yeah.
but I think you're back. You're back.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, you're back. Yeah, you're good. Go ahead, Jay.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's and that's there's something. It's a lot more deep and malignant. People. It's funny, and this is something that Barry Weiss said too. It used to be that everybody thought it was wrong for the media to screw up and to not cover both sides of a story. The Fifth Estate used to be held accountable to that. When any paper took a side on something, they were heavily criticized for that. And that's going away on both sides. There are times where Fox gets out of control the other way. There are times
100%.
Yeah, there are plenty of sources that are so right wing it's impossible to find.
No matter whether they're left wing or right wing, they're still all guilty of the very same thing, which is they need ratings, they need viewers, and they need to sell headlines. They need to sell this stuff. So whether you support some of their messages or none of their messages, it doesn't change the fact that they still need money and they still need viewers and they still need to create some sort of sensation for you to view, or else they don't get advertisers, they don't make money. So that's how media works. They want you to view it, and they want to be sensational. They want to have a differing opinion, and
yeah. Well, and there used to be safeguards in place. If you don't know what the history of news on television and radio is, there was a time when corporate, somebody would form a company. This is going to be a entertainment company, and we're going to broadcast on the airwaves through televisions or radio, and so we're going to apply to the government to own a frequency, right? A channel, so to speak. They have to get that frequency. To have access to that, the government would say, sure, yeah, you can do that. What it's going to cost you is you have to produce the news twice a day. You have to produce high quality news. These are going to be the standards of journalistic excellence that you must follow, or we can pull you off the air at any time. And that is completely eroded and gone, because now the government that is in power wants to use the media to get votes. And so they hold only one of the two sides of journalistic development. They make sure that everything, in the case of somebody in the left gets elected, they make sure that only the journalists on the left are bulletproof, and everybody on the right is up to constant scrutiny, constant censorship, constant attack, fines, everything. So what happened was, it started in a very good way, and it was done very well for many years. We found out about Richard Nixon as a result of good journalism. It wasn't agencies, it wasn't police that blew the lid off of Richard Nixon. It was a very good interview who sat in front of him and got it out of him. That's what journalism can be, and is no longer.
Can be, and is no longer. It has been that way for a long time.
Yeah.
Journalism like that may exist somewhere, but
it's
I've not
handcuffed.
Seen it.
It's handcuffed in a closet.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, if you're looking at alternative media outlets like, say, Rebel News, True North, even places like Project Veritas and these different places, sure. I mean, you can find some great stuff there, but for the most part, anybody outside of sort of this small group of people who are looking for the answers outside of mainstream media. Anybody in that group who still accepts mainstream media's view and mainstream media's story will still see that as conspiracy theory and non-truths. So, journalism went so far down into the barrel, so far down the tube, that the real journalism, when it comes out, is still being viewed as, oh, it's conspiracy theory. It's not true. It's sensationalism. It's not a real story, and the actual bullshit being told by mainstream media is being touted as the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, what you get is the people who really actually care have now left mainstream media, and they're on YouTube, or in some cases they may have started their own company like Daily Wire,
Right.
which has a number of real solid good journalists, truthful, honest, and highly factual.
And let's not forget True North. Let's not forget Project Veritas. Let's not forget
Substack. I mean, there's
Substack.
There's a million that are connected to nothing and are just doing a Substack thing, and they have all taken a huge salary hit to do what they actually went to school to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then they get vilified for sure. But the people who continue to do that, even though they're vilified, even though they make half of the money, I don't really think you need to question their integrity. Maybe some of their facts are off. Maybe sometimes they skew a little left or right, but you cannot question the integrity of somebody who will do that.
Yeah, questioning their character seems absurd to me. And if you're telling me that there's no journalists out there who have never swayed their opinion left or right, or this way or that way, even with the most, sort of honorable of intentions, I'd say you're a fool, because they're all going to be subject to some sort of opinion. They all have feelings. They all have opinions. They all have a certain view. And I think that's why you identify with some journalists over others.
Yeah, exactly.
Some journalists might always take the soft approach, might always be like, this guy, and some journalists might be like, this guy needs a kick in the ass. Why does he get his shit together? And you might identify better with that stern approach rather than let's pat him on the back. Or I'm just using a very poor example, but what I'm saying is you need to have that in order to make journalism a little bit more spicy, a little bit more interesting.
You have to stand for something, or you will fall for anything. Like a person does have to have beliefs, or else why listen to them? If they're, are they an android, right? Like there's no, there's no such thing as not having opinions. But yeah, so somebody who's willing to put it on the line, I think you should definitely listen to what they have to say, and that goes for people who may be a little more left wing than me. I'll still go and listen to what they have to say, because before you take a boat out on the ocean, you want to make sure it doesn't leak. And the way that you do that is to try to punch holes in it. And the way that you punch holes in your wisdom are to steelman the opposing side. Read something that challenges your beliefs, and then you'll know how strong your beliefs are and whether they're valid.
That is not only very good advice, but it's also, it's a quality we should all strive to live by. If you have a belief, put it out there. Let somebody beat it up. And if it survives that beating, if it survives that discussion, then it's a good belief. And if you're willing to stand behind it, then it makes it that much stronger, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
And what has killed the mainstream media? It's the simple fact that the real journalistic talent that actually believes in those people that went to Columbia J School and went to Harvard and went to these places, they left mainstream media. Well, now mainstream media is left without the talent. They have, and that's why they lose audience. Well, because
now hang on, you want to talk about mainstream media talent? What about Rachel Gilmore? There's some talent right there.
Yeah. But yeah, I stopped reading the New York Times even before Bari Weiss left. But had Bari Weiss not left the New York Times, there would have been a component of the New York Times that I could at least trust, had an editor who was, if not able to make sure that it was accurate, was at least fighting to have some accuracy there. She leaves and I'm gone. the New York Times lost somebody there. And how many thousands of people left with Barry Weiss? Probably plenty.
Probably.
This is why the mainstream media is dying. It's not dying as a result of their viewers. It's dying as a result of the fact that they created
they do a shit job.
A vacuum of truth.
They do a shit job. Let's face it. They do a shit job. They've been doing a shit job for a long time, and people are wise enough with the advent of lightning fast information sharing. People are wise enough now to see through it.
Well, and people want transparency. People will not tolerate less than transparency.
And that's just it. Like you can't.
And there's no such thing as a secret.
No, you can't really play the same game you used to play. You can't really get away with telling the story and having it be, this big thing and never having it get out, because the truth is out there now and it's very easily recognizable and very easily found, as we have discovered with the Twitter files. Yeah,
well, and as you said, you brought up Project Veritas, and then we look at
who was back on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah, and then we look at WikiLeaks.
Go and follow them, kids. If you follow anybody on Twitter, please go and follow Project Veritas. They do a bang up job over there, at exposing some incredible stuff. And they've been in the thick of things through the election fraud, through a bunch of stuff. So please follow them on Twitter. And no, we are not sponsored in any way by Project Veritas. We don't even know them.
And follow them on YouTube as well.
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like those organizations are the reason that there is no such thing as, if you think that you can keep a secret as an agency, as a company, that's retarded. You can't. So there's no point in trying to hide it. You may as well just fess up to it right off the bat, because it'll do less damage than it will 2 years from now when somebody blows the whistle.
Well, yeah, 100%. Get out ahead of it, right? I mean, that's a common terminology used. And just to go back a little bit, when you say mainstream media, I say fuck that. I don't like that term anymore, because I think shows like this, our True North and Project Veritas, I think we're taking over. Rebel News, I don't think there's such a thing as mainstream media. I think it's a better description would be legacy media, as in your legacy was this and you're no longer a part of the picture.
I think that those groups, though, would prefer to be called journalism than media. I don't think they want to be called media at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that's accurate. I don't think that calling them media, because that's our terminology that we're used to, is going to be an insult to them, but I get that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They'd rather be called actual journalists because they're actually doing journalism.
Well, and if we start to make that distinction between which is entertainment and media and which is journalism, then we can start to sort of put things into their proper place. I'm going to watch Gutfeld for entertainment. Not going to take it as according to Hoyle journalism. It makes me laugh, right? So that,
no, that's a good point.
And I'm not going to read Barry Weiss or Michael Shellenburger for laughs. I might get a laugh or two in an article, but it's not amusing. I'm doing that because I want to know something that I don't presently know. And that if you could institute that into your watching and the way that you ingest information, if you could make that and discern that difference and start making that decision in your mind, I'm going to watch this for some yucks, or I really want to know about this, I'm going to go see what Schellenberg has to say about it.
Right.
That's where you're going to be able to compartmentalize things into your own brain and start to build your own intelligence. And that's how you win. Yeah. Being smarter. And it starts with organize your thoughts. And don't treat Tucker Carlson like you can write a paper about that. That is entertainment.
So as much as I love Tucker Carlson, and I do, I think he's good.
Me too.
I do watch a lot of what he does and listen to a lot of what he says with I take it with a grain of salt. I think that it's entertainment. I think some of it's a bit of a reach. Some of it's on point. But the point is I am not so blind to see that one extreme is any better than the other.
Yep. Well, and I mean, it can inform you in that he has a whole team of people who are doing research for figuring out what's going to be interesting to people, and he'll find out about it before you do. So you watch that, you get the entertainment value, you hear about something interesting, and then you go off and formulate your opinion, not based solely on Tucker. Tucker says, this is a thing, and blah, blah, blah. And then you go, okay, well, let me go and dive deeper. Deeper means not entertaining. Like,
that's true. That's true. If there's work involved, people are no longer entertained. If they actually have to do some reading or some digging, then it's no longer entertaining, and they're going to go to the next channel.
Yeah, well, and that, I mean, part of that is not for myself, but for the great majority of society. They live in the city. They're working 8-hour days. They're spending an hour or two and from work. They get 10 hours. Then they got food. They don't actually have time to do anymore. But now,
I agree.
But now with the rise of podcasts, programs like this, if you're listening to this, thank you very much.
Thank you, by the way. I know the sound of our gorgeous voices is more than enough. Thank you, but thank you either
exactly. Way. Yeah. So now people can drive to work and they can listen to a podcast. So what's great about listening to the podcast as opposed to watching it is you can download that onto your phone in 35 seconds. And now you no longer have to stream it. It's on your phone and you just play it throughout the day when you have time, and you can learn that way. And there's nothing wrong with auditory learning. There really isn't.
There isn't. There's also nothing wrong with, letting a couple of schleps like us break through or break down some of the information for you, and sort of put it into a format that might be more palatable to you and more something you can absorb throughout your day. Maybe you, say for instance you're an Uber driver, and you kind of have to pay attention to the road and to your clients and stuff. You can still have some audio going, like a podcast going in the background in your headphones or whatever. Not that I recommend using headphones while you drive, but do it legally. Either way, you could still get that fix for information, that fix for news broken down for you in the form of an audio file that you can pretty much do anything with. You can go for a walk and listen to it. You can be on the elliptical and listen to it. You can be working and listen to it. You can be, in the case of people who drive for a living, you can be driving, listen to it. Either way, it's definitely a new age of information, and I highly recommend you finding good progressive podcasts that are to your liking, and find a way to digest the information that way, because you're certainly going to get a lot more, in my opinion, and I'm not just referring to us, obviously our information is great, but in my opinion, you're getting a lot more valuable information, a lot more real time information by finding the right podcasts. And we can list a couple in the description here, but I mean, we can start with Lex Friedman, we can start with the Daily Wire, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. There are many, and some of those are right leaning if we want to be divisive in our politics and divisive in our languaging, sure. But what I'm finding is now when you label something as right-leaning, it's more somebody who stands in traditional values and stands for the rule of law, rather than who just wants to be willy-nilly and sink into communism. Because let's face it, I mean, we're looking at communism coming right down the pike here. So,
and do not think for 1 second that right-wing now means Christian, because nope.
No.
It just means that you believe that there was some value in society prior to 1965. That there was
exactly
something worth carrying forward.
Right-leaning, generally speaking, right-leaning means, somebody who has respect and admiration and upholds the rule of law.
And also, I just want to say, tip your Uber drivers. Tip your Uber drivers. Yep. If you tip somebody who brings you a hamburger from 30 feet away, then tip somebody who keeps you alive during a 30-minute drive through rush hour traffic, or on New Year's Eve when there's drunk people everywhere and they're pretty much risking their sanity. Tip them.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing the thing you don't want to be doing that day, and the thing, or that evening, and the thing you can't be doing that evening. So take care of them, because they're taking care of you.
And gas is expensive.
And I suppose it should be said that Uber drivers are people too.
Yeah. And you know what?
They have families to feed.
They're saving you gas. They're providing a clean, well-maintained vehicle.
Yeah.
Good people.
And generally speaking, they're less expensive than cabs. Yeah. And again, the caveat should be that we are not sponsored by Uber. We have no sponsors. Nobody is dumb enough to try and sponsor us. So
Yeah.
this is just us being legitimate, genuine.
It's also the little guy. That's an entrepreneur. An Uber driver is an entrepreneur. They are creating a business with no brick and mortar, and they're basically taking all that overhead. When you call a cab, there's a thing that goes on. There's a cab company, and they got mechanics working there. They got secretaries. They got accountants. Whole bunch of people whose salary you have to pay for, versus going with an entrepreneur like an Uber driver, who is basically taking all of that wicked overhead off your hands for you. And there's nothing more valuable than that.
I agree.
And also on podcasts, something that I've learned just recently, actually, if you want to find a podcast source that is not at all censored, you find that on Audible. Strange.
Oh yeah. Audible is the best source for all that kind of stuff. I've been into
has
Audible.
Absolutely no censorship. No.
Yeah.
Nobody is there approving it or anything. You can take your podcast and put it onto Audible.
But you can find some strange shit on there too. Let us just preface this by saying you can find some really weird shit on there, but it's uncensored. So if you really want to know uncensored, unsponsored kind of truth, that's a good place to find it. For me, there's some good podcasts that aren't on Audible, but all the good ones are on Audible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's no, I know that because I'm currently putting this episode will be on, as many podcasting places as I can get it on within the next 4 or 5 days. And in the research of that process, I can actually say with certainty that one of the there's very few like Owltail and Audible that they don't say, well, you have to submit it and we will approve it or not approve it. Right. So right now we're waiting for episode 1 to be approved by Google and Spotify, not so much with Audible and Owltail. So there you go.
Yeah. So just so you know, it's not that we're not doing the work. It's that the sites and these different agencies take some time to approve it. Mm-hmm. And I just want to point out to people that as we progress, we will have intro music, we will have transitions, we will have end credits, we will have all this. We've spent a lot of time just getting up and running. So the fact that you're even seeing our beautiful faces right now is a miracle, quite frankly. However, we are sort of on the cusp of having a better produced type of show where we have audio beginnings and tickers and transitions and sort of a little bit better production. We're working on that, so stay tuned, be patient with us, and much love to our one viewer. One viewer. Yep.
Yeah. And just like your Uber driver, we're trying to save you. We're cutting out the middleman, and in an entrepreneurial fashion, we're getting rid of all the overhead for you.
And you don't even have to tip us.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in the case of YouTube, you're going to see ads anyway. That's not us. We're not monetized. That's YouTube cashing in.
Yeah, we don't. None of our stuff's monetized yet, and I suspect it will take quite a bit of building before we ever see that become a discussion. But I think that
I don't think we'll ever meet the criteria to be monetized on YouTube. No. You have to be very, very well behaved.
Are you challenging me, Jay? Right now,
well,
is the gauntlet being thrown? This is what I would like to know.
Watch 5 minutes of Brett Weinstein's podcast, and realize that is banned from monetization, and then you'll realize that
we have no hope in fuck.
No. But the app is going to be, nobody will have to go to YouTube very soon. It'll all be on the app.
Yeah, well, it'll be on the app. And the other thing is we are trying to figure out how to get our we have a Rumble channel. Mm-hmm. I suppose we could get the recording from here over to Rumble, but we have not worked out how to stream from our platform to Rumble yet live.
Mm-hmm. Because Rumble's on the up and up too, like us, and they don't have all the fancy toys yet, but they will too.
And also keep in mind we're rookies here, so we're still trying to figure this out. If anybody has expertise in this stuff, by the way, reach out to either one of us. If you feel like you can be a help to us to get our information out and our stream onto the multiple platforms. We use Restream currently, and we've been trying to incorporate our OBS studio in there, but it's just not working. So as we broadcast right now, we're just straight from Restream without any of our fancy stuff, with no transitions, no audio. So anybody out there listening or watching, anybody that sees this, reach out to us if you're in the know about this stuff. We'd like to know. We're learning. We're trying to figure this out. Help us out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that was 2 and 3 that we talked about. Now, when it came to Twitter Files 4, that's Michael Shellenburger, and he's done a little bit more in the way of interviews than the previous two, and he is still at this point at Twitter. He's kind of seems to have taken the role of the overseer of what's happening with this. There's what's actually going on is that there are journalists not at this moment because it's like Sunday night, but during the week, during the business hours, there are journalists who are at Twitter headquarters, and they have a small team assembled, and they are asking for this and that, and they're searching through, and they're making sure that what is re-released by Twitter is actually high quality stuff, and there's actually a purpose, and that it isn't misleading in any way, and that's what's going on.
The Shellenburger guy is a Twitter employee.
No, he's author.
No? He's an
author. Yeah, he has done work for Twitter in the past as a contractor, but never been an employee. He's never had a badge, I don't think.
I guess it's quite likely I didn't get that far in the story, but yeah, go ahead, Jay.
But his role was he came in at the Twitter Files in episode. I'm going to call it episode 3. Started at January 6th, and it's related to January 6th. What the Twitter employees were deciding about what to call January 6th, what hyperbole to sling about that, how often to use the word treason and shit like that, and
so
and
basically
then
what the FBI was telling them to say.
Yes, exactly. This is where the FBI starts to get their claws in.
Yeah,
and they used it as a way to, as a justification to be like, and here's some of the stupid shit that they were saying, like this was the worst attack on American soil since 9/11. It was the worst thing to happen to America since the Civil War.
Don't even get me started on 9/11.
Like nothing happened on January 6th. A bunch of clowns got into the Capitol building who nobody took seriously, including their supporters. and
I mean, let's face it. There's an ample amount of evidence that shows that it was collusionary at best. At worst, it was very much on purpose to paint Donald Trump and any Trump supporters in a bad light. I think there's a lot of evidence out there that supports the fact that it was put on by the Democrats and by the FBI to make that seem like. Like I don't know. You have to dig deep.
Yeah.
Into this
somebody is out there and is going to prove at some point that most of those people were Antifa and not QAnon. But
I don't think there's no doubt of the. Well, okay.
There's no
unless
doubt,
unless you're living under a rock, you know that.
But the Crown prosecutors, or I guess in the states, the Senate. The Senate committee.
It's as convenient as fuck and as old as time. As soon as something doesn't work out for you as a government, you label it a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And it's just done constantly, and they admit that that's what the CIA did to label things like that they didn't want coming out. They said just call them conspiracy theorists, and then people think they're crazy. They told you they did that, and they do it still, and you still believe it.
Yeah.
Are you fucking listening or what? Wake up. God.
We have to wake the fuck up.
Wake up.
Give your head a shake.
Wake up, people.
So
Wake up a little bit. Jesus.
So that was the mode that happened. And so basically, and here's how insulting it is. People sometimes lose track of how insulting these things. Like I was saying last time when we were talking about gold, when the government prints more money, what they have done is piss on all of the money that you currently have and said, well, this isn't as valuable anymore. Fuck $200 worth of your 1,000, because yeah, it's not worth shit anymore. The people lose track of how insulting that is, just like they lose track of how insulting it is that, well, there were some losers who broke into the Capitol building and did dumb stuff. And so now all of you have to be treated like everything you say is a potential threat to the entire fabric of our society. And there's nothing more, that's so fucking insulting. If you're not insulted by that, then you're not fucking paying attention, because that's really insulting, I think. You know.
Well, yeah, it's Jay. It's definitely insulting. God,
yeah.
the
maybe I'm just better than most people at finding the insult in things, but yeah, I don't just find it evil and malevolent and all that stuff, but it's personally insulting.
Well, it was designed that way, to be personally insulting to you specifically.
Yeah, to me.
To
some
you.
Some fucker wrote, you know.
Some guy was like, I'm going to write this story and say, fuck this guy. This guy, Jay, is going to be insulted by this story.
There's a chance that some fucker at Twitter at some point typed my name and said, this guy, this guy's a problem.
There's a good chance.
See,
I don't
it's
think
not even a conspiracy theory that they're after you, because they're after millions and millions of us, and it's all there in data. So you're not wrong if you think they're after you. Somebody
and I saw, well, you know, a long time ago, if somebody, and I say a long time ago, a few years ago, I consider that a long time ago at this point, because wow, with COVID, we've sure aged a lot as a society. But either way, I shouldn't have said that word. Hopefully, we can edit that out later.
Yeah, we'll bleep it. We'll bleep it.
We'll bleep that out.
I think somebody said
we've aged a lot as a society, and so I kind of look around and I go, well, not so long ago, you could have a conversation with somebody about things and not have it be more sensitive than you realize. And so what I'm getting at is, like, for instance, what's your vaccination status?
Mm-hmm.
Now, 4 years ago, I never would have dreamed of saying that to anybody. I never would have dreamed of asking anything about anybody's medical status, because I would have felt that was, well, for one, it is legally, at least for now, information that should only be and only is ever necessary to be shared between a doctor and the patient. That's called doctor-patient confidentiality.
Yeah.
But what's funny now is it's become accepted that information should be on display for the public. So have we got to the point now where it's okay for me to invade your privacy when I feel I have the right to do it, but it's not okay for you to have, or it's not okay for you to invade my privacy when I don't want you to?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where we're at. Like, I mean, really, like, you can, you know, there's people that are, there's an incredibly high amount of increased deaths, excess mortalities, excess deaths, all cause mortalities. And a lot of it's unexplained.
Well, and our viewer points out a good point. It's not that a long time ago there was laws about that. There's still laws that protect that. And at the present time, there are certain government activities that are in violation of current HIPAA laws. Those laws are on the books right now. You can't ask somebody if they're post-op or pre-op. You cannot.
That's true.
That's illegal.
That's true, but I can ask you what your vaccination status is when you get to the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
because it's relevant there.
How sneaky was that they got that in there? And but again, that is one of the things that in the case of Alberta, that was Alberta's reason to disregard mandates and to say to businesses, no, you cannot vaccine passport people, because because that is against the Freedom of Information Act. That's why Alberta was able to do that. Not many. I think Saskatchewan has done it now as well, but most provinces haven't. But the reason they could is because they know that the government can't come after them, because they know that in a constitutional court case they will win. It is the freedom of information.
Well, it is, and the laws didn't change through any of this. We still have the same laws in place, although the governments are working feverishly to change a lot of the laws to put things in place that were done illegally. That's a whole other show. It's a whole other matter. My point here right now is that the laws are still and were still in place during that time, and they were violated. You don't need a province to say, well, no, this is not going to stand up, so we're not going to support vaccine passports. Well, the fact is that they're not constitutional. They are illegal.
Yeah.
And they violate several sections of our charter, as well as multiple sections of the Nuremberg Code, which we've talked about before. So,
and there are many of them on Supreme Court dockets. Not yet. They're coming, and but they've been booked, and we're just waiting for that to happen.
I think all of us are sort of also anticipating the results or the findings of the Rouleau Commission.
Yeah. Which is due February 28th.
It's due at the end of February, yeah. I've been given this a lot of thought.
And constitutionally, it must be provided by February 20th. That's what the Emergency Act is. Yeah,
it might be sooner. Yeah, it might be sooner. But I've been giving this a lot of thought, and the only thing that I can gather from it, and that I can get from it, and we're way off on another subject here. The other thing I can get from it is that no matter what, I don't think the findings will be what we think they should be.
No. And that's generally what happens with court. It's very rare that either the plaintiff or the defendant gets exactly what they want in court.
And so the wheels of justice turn slowly, and they rarely turn as completely and as decisively as you would hope.
Yeah.
But they do turn. They are still working. Don't lose faith in our system. Don't lose faith in our government. Don't lose faith in our way of doing things in society, because they are still valid. For those of you, I know myself, I've been a bit disillusioned with society and the way things have gone with privacy and with... Since the start of this whole CV thing, I've been a bit disillusioned, and I've been very distrusting. So I can relate to anybody that doesn't trust maybe mainstream media, maybe doesn't trust, corporate medical, societies and all this. I get that, but don't lose all faith, because there are still a lot of really great reporters, a lot of really great physicians, a lot of really great researchers, a lot of really great leaders out there. Do I think that the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, is the saving force for Canada? Nope. No, I don't. I don't think so at all. I think he's just another guy jumping on the next wave. Yeah. You have the illusion of choice in government, but you don't really have a choice, because they all have the same goal.
Yeah.
Up until we change that, it's going to be that way.
Yeah. Like the party that's in charge is not the function of government. What the reason to have multiple parties, and the actual thing that they serve, is to simply keep things... They're supposed to keep things relatively close to the middle. You elect this one, it tries to do its things.
Yep. Checks and balances. Yep. Checks and balances.
Back and forth.
Yep.
Resistance.
Checks. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it's supposed to be that way, but
yeah, we do need institutional change. But before you think, and it's very important here. I'll bring this back to Barry Weiss. I'll bring this first full circle with you. This is, for me.
Please do. I lost us
there. Quote of the year in 2022 was Barry Weiss, for me, was Barry Weiss saying to Jordan Peterson when he said, "Why are so many people interested in violent, bloody revolution?" And she said, "Because they're so far removed from violent, bloody revolution." She said, "I can go down the street with my wife," so a lesbian with her wife, who's Jewish, "and you can see my collarbones, and you can see my wrists, my face, and all this, and we can go and get a falafel, and I won't be stoned to death." that is a miracle when you look at human history as a whole. As bad as it is, we're the top
you're not wrong.
5% ever of anything that's ever lived on this planet.
You're not wrong.
So,
but as soon as a little bit
of revolution, realize for 97% of the people listening, you are not ready for revolution.
Well,
do you
let
have
me tell
a garden?
You.
Can you live without electricity? Can you live without plumbing? I submit that you cannot.
those people, generally speaking, that call for violence, that call for a revolution, that call for a civil war, don't actually know anything about it and wouldn't know what to do with it if it hit them right in the face.
And they would get nailed by the first roving gang of people with guns that came along, too.
Exactly. Those people, generally speaking, are people that are better left in their mom's basement playing their Call of Duty or whatever the fuck they play, because they don't know true violence. People that know true violence and people that have lived true violence don't ever want to see it again and hope and pray that all of their life could be spent avoiding it. Let me tell you. So those people that call for a revolution, that want a civil war in the States, they don't know what they're talking about. And nobody with half a brain actually really wants that. What we do need desperately is some sort of institutional change.
Smaller government and more at the local level. Way more at the local level.
I think, and politicians that are held accountable. So if you do not balance the budget in their first 6 months in office, you're gone. Checks and balances. If you make campaign promises and you don't keep at least 3 out of 4, you're gone. If you say you're going to change this or write this law or change this and you don't, you're gone. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think that's unrealistic. I mean, that would certainly make a politician pretty quick to, hold up his end of the deal and do what he said he was going to do. That's for sure. If he wants to keep his job and make that money, gotta make that money.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, because we always follow, right? We're kind of like, how CO2 or how CO2 follows temperature, not vice versa. It gets warmer, there becomes more CO2. Canada will change when the U.S. does. It'll always lead. The U.S. lead on that all the time. So right now, Senate and congressional hearings going on, and the Twitter files are on the docket this week. Now, whether that actually happens or not is not entirely certain, but like whether it's this week or next week, I'm saying, but they're booked for this week. So I'm going to be covering that live. I'll stream the whole thing, I'll explain some shitty government speak that they use and etc. But that's where it'll start. I don't have your camera.
Okay,
sure. No, your camera's gone. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, good. We're good.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, it was just when you were opening your beverage.
Shout out to our other viewer, Nick. Hey, Nick, thanks for following along and listening to our garbled nonsense.
Welcome, Nick. So yeah, the congressional and Senate hearings, and also the grand jury investigation into the C word and its various implications. That's also coming up. The Supreme Court of Florida did approve that, and it's going to happen. That's private. That'll be done in a private setting. Grand juries are not public. They're not recorded or anything like that. So, but
and in case anybody's mom's watching, the C word is not what you think it is.
Yeah, it's not a see you next Tuesday.
Exactly. It's a C word we've defined newly here in 2022, 2023 that is more likely to get us more hate than the other C word. At least
it's a variation of a virus that has existed since 1973, but that we just decided we would flip out about a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well. Don't even get started on it.
And in other news, I've been monitoring really closely. Some people are really looking into an event that occurred in October of 2020 in a place called Wuhan, China, which may be relevant for some reason to the general discourse. And it's an event that's only happened 4 times. It's called the Military Games. And various countries around the world select a group of athletes, and they go, and it's almost like the Olympics, but for the military. So they gathered in a place called Wuhan, China, and they had their little military games. And then as they departed in October, we can see video of them getting on a plane, and they're wearing masks that are for bacteria. They're wearing these masks, and they get on these planes, and then they go back to their home country. And now we're finding out that those people may have reported certain symptoms when they arrived at their country of origin after said games occurring in Wuhan, China. So that's another interesting point that we will remain vague on.
That sounds like crazy talk to me, Jay. That would never happen in real life. We'll try and we'll try and make some of our clips available on TikTok as well. Both Jay and I have a TikTok. We'll put those links in the description. And please, guys, please, Twitter as well. We both have Twitter going. But please, guys, like, share, subscribe. Let's get us a little bit of presence. Anybody who's watched this far, the least you can do is
full of shit is being smashed by the algorithm, and the only way around it is that people actually fight the algorithm, and the way you do that is by sharing it directly, because the search function doesn't work for people who
exactly. So without you liking, sharing, and subscribing, we get nowhere. We get nothing done. So you mean as much to us as you could.
Yeah.
Yep. That's true. That's true. Any good source. Yep. Yeah. Any good source. You got to share the information. You got to get the clicks, and in order to do that, you got to like and share and subscribe. So please do so, and please tell your friends. And
it only takes a moment.
Well, it might cost you to buy us a beer. That's kind of what I'm getting at here, Jay.
That would be good too. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll take it. We may have an announcement coming up in the next month here about possibly a merch line, maybe. We're talking about it. We're looking at it, so we could be getting some fancy merch lines going. And I will. Jay is the graphics guy. Jay, you have that. You have a couple of the graphics. Maybe you can put those up in the description for people to take a look at, because the one there would be a great T-shirt for sure. And the other one I think would be a great. I don't know, just a great, maybe an NFT. It'd be cool.
I think we're actually a list of merchandise, and then different and have people be able to build their own merch based on that to spot them out. There's a good company that I'd like to learn that, who is a mom and pop shop, and they're doing great things in that way. I think we may
go there. Design your own merch, even crazier. I love it.
BYOM.
Bring your own merch. There you go. Okay, we're gonna pull the. I think we're gonna pull the plug on this one. Jay, anything final?
If you run, Confucius said, if you run a car, you run behind a car, you get exhausted.
I'm pretty sure Confucius didn't say that, but I still like it.
Good to each other.
Well, be good to each other. With those pearls of wisdom, much love, kids. We will see you on the next live stream. Thank you for joining us. This has been Jay and Scott. We are the Unacceptables. You're listening to us through Rabbit Hole Radio. Have a good year. It's 2023. Much love.
Yeah, the year of the rabbit.
There you go. We're out.
Cheers, everybody.